Happy Thursday, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of Ask Mish. So you guys have been asking me for this, and I'm sorry it took so long. This episode is going to be the part 2 of the masculine, feminine energy dissertation via Jersey Shore episode. So if you guys remember a couple of weeks ago, I took the male cast members of Jersey Shore and I explained the 4 different archetypes of masculine and feminine energy through them, because let's think about it. A Polly shows up so much differently in the world than a Vinny, than a Ronnie. And I think energy is one of the most underrated things when it comes to our relationships with ourselves and what we put out there and who we attract and all of those types of things. So the Jersey Shore girl cast actually works pretty well with it too. And I'm going to go through the different archetypes and which character falls into which one. I want you to hear which one you feel like you relate to the most. I'm also going to give you guys some tips at the end as far as like when you realize like, oh, okay, you know what, maybe I'm a little bit of a Sammi or I'm a little bit of a JWoww and I want to balance myself out. To the end, I'm going to give some quick tips to start to earn that energy and become more powerful. So let's run through the guys really quick just as a recap. If you want to hear the full episode, I'll link it in the show notes. It's a couple down from this one. But strong masculine, strong feminine, Poly D, right? Confident, assertive, but also emotionally intelligent and nurturing, like at the same time. Now, Vinny is a really good example of strong feminine energy, weak masculine energy. So very nurturing, very like emotionally intuitive, all of that, but doesn't have like that decisive, like assertive energy that we're looking for, or a lot of us are looking for in a partner. Then we have Mike the Situation, pre-therapy, pre-rehab, pre all of that. He's a really good example of strong masculine, weak feminine. So strong masculine, but in a very like controlling way, not emotionally intelligent, like not nurturing, just like controlling. Now, as he went through his healing process, he's now a very good example of somebody who's more like a Polly, who is strong masculine, strong feminine. And then the last example with the guys was Ronnie, who was weak masculine, weak feminine, like just like chaotic, like not emotionally intelligent, not really decisive, like roller coaster, like up and down, unpredictable, all of the things. So those are the guys. And we're going to talk about the girls now. Now, I want you to listen for which female like archetype do you represent now, and how can we move you into a more balanced type? But just hearing it and recognizing it in something like reality show stars is such an interesting thing to do. And I'm going to give you guys examples. If you're not a Jersey Shore fan like myself, I'll give you more examples of celebrities and reality show stars that maybe you will resonate with. Now, I personally hate the term masculine and feminine energy. To me, it sounds woo-woo. I talked about this in the last episode. It needs a modern day PR upgrade, which I am out here campaigning for. But it's such a strong and powerful thing in a relationship. And just to remind you really quick, when I say masculine and feminine energy, I'm going to explain in more detail as the episode goes on what that means. But I'm not talking about genders. I'm not talking about boy, girl. I'm saying masculine and feminine energy. And all males and all females have both masculine and feminine energy. All right, so let's kick this off with some JWoww action, some Jenny action. So if you guys are not familiar with Jenny or JWoww from the Jersey Shore, she's somebody that's going to represent strong masculine and weak feminine. And if you are not familiar with her at all, I will give you some more reality show people examples, because that's the language that I speak. Bethany Frankel, especially early in her career, really good example of somebody who's strong, masculine, weak, feminine. Stassi Schroeder from Vanderpump Rules, strong, masculine, weaker, feminine. Lala Kent, Vanderpump Rules, great example of somebody who's strong, masculine, weak, feminine. Tamara Judge from OC, good example. Celebrities off the top of my head that I could think of, like Pink is coming to mind, the singer Pink. So these people who are women that are very strong in their masculine energy, but a little bit weaker in their feminine energy. So they are really controlling. They're really big on like dominating a situation. They could tend to be like aggressive and they get very defensive, and they tend to be very like logical over emotional. So they're like cut people off. Like they don't care. They're like, don't F with me. Like, you don't F with them, So they're very like decisive. They're very like strong in there, but they lack that like soft nurturing aspect to them that would make them feel more balanced. A lot of times these women too are like hyper independent. Like they are like, I don't need you. I don't need anybody. They don't lean on people for anything. They have difficulty like emotionally processing things, or they don't allow themselves to emotionally process things. So a lot of times they've experienced maybe trauma, but they've intellectually processed it, but they haven't emotionally processed it. And that's why this energy sort of comes out. A lot of their reactions to things are probably defense mechanisms from traumas that they had. I don't know off the top of my head Jenny's situation with her family, but usually this comes from like some parent dynamic that was maybe a little off, that caused them to protect themselves as they got older. This is obviously not always the case, but a lot of times it is. So if you are a JWoww, what might you have trouble doing, as far as your relationships go? You're going to have a difficult time receiving love and support. One of the main characteristics of somebody who's in their feminine is they're very good at receiving, specifically love, support, whatever, but you have a hard time. Now you can nurture people in your way, because you're going to want to be in control of the situation. Like if Snooki, for example, was like throwing up, JWoww would be like, I'm taking care of her. So like they're nurturing in that way, but they can't receive it themselves. Like JWoww, I can't see her back in the early days letting anyone like take care of her. So they will nurture in the aspect of like, I'm going to be in charge, I'm going to be in control, I'm going to make sure everything is taken care of, but they won't allow other people to do that to them. Again, usually it's like a protective mechanism because of some past trauma that they had to experience, probably parental, but not always. There's also a lack of emotional vulnerability. Like when somebody hurts them, they don't like emote sadness usually. They'll shut down completely, or they'll get angry and defensive. So again, when you have that balanced feminine energy, like you process emotions, or you allow yourself, I should say, to process emotions a little bit differently. When you lack that feminine energy, what ends up happening is you get mad, or you shut down, or you like cut people out. So the problem in relationships is that this type of person will likely attract strong men. Like JWoww is not going to be attracting like a Vinny, right? That's just not going to happen. But she's very likely to attract somebody like a Mike, right? Because they're going to be in that dominant role. Now, the problem is that they're both going to be fighting for that dominance, and that's why they're going to be fighting all the time. Now, what's interesting with JWoww is that if you notice over the years, she's softened up. She started dating her fiance, husband. I don't know. They've been together forever. So his name, oh my gosh, I can't think of his real name. They call him 23 because he was 23 when they started dating. Now, if you watch him now, he's much younger than her. But if you pay attention to his energy, he is a really good example of strong masculine, strong feminine energy. I have a feeling in their dynamic that made JWoww feel very safe. His energy in that relationship, I think, actually positively impacted her to the point where she became more balanced within herself because she felt safe to do so. But you can also do it within yourself, which I'll give you some tips as to how to start to do that towards the end. All right, so let's do Deena now. So Deena to me reads as strong feminine, very strong feminine, but weak masculine. So she doesn't quite like have the backbone that she needs. So where JWoww like really needs to soften up a little bit, she needs to develop more strength. As far as like celebrities go, it almost gives me like Drew Barrymore energy, like back in the day. So people with weak masculine but strong feminine, very emotionally expressive, very open, very free with their feelings, they're going to be magnetic to an extent. Always, people with strong feminine energy are always going to be magnetic, and they'll tend to be like super like go with the flow. Like if you remember when she first joined the show, her catchphrase, she's like, I'm a blast in a glass. Like she's just very chill, very go with the flow. She's going to be someone who's extremely nurturing, like really values her relationships, really values her friendships, but could be like people pleasery also. So she's not going to be somebody that's like assertive and has the ability to lead or direct, which is kind of funny because, again, if you're a fan like me and you watch the Jersey Shore Family Vacation episodes, she tries to take control, and she tries to do these like family like fun days where she tries to like take control of the group and like plan out a day, and like they all go along with it, but you can sense that there's no leadership, there's no direction, nobody really wants to do it, it's not authoritative. Versus if JWoww was like, all right, I'm planning a day, we're going for it, like everyone would probably just like follow and lead her. Versus with Deena, like that energy just isn't there, that masculine energy just isn't built up enough. So even though she tries, because the energy isn't there, people don't follow her. And again, this is why the energy aspect of this is so important. if you're ever wondering like, well, I do all the same things as this person does, but like they get this result and I get that result, it's always because of your energy. But being aware of this is how you can start to fix it. When you have a lot of feminine energy without that masculine energy to balance it out, you're emotional, but it can be overwhelming just because there's like a lack of like discipline there versus like somebody who's more balanced. Like they'll feel free and comfortable to like express their emotions, but there's like a purpose or an intention to it. It doesn't come off as just like chaotic or overly emotional or inappropriate for the circumstances. If Deena, I think, were to balance out her masculine energy a little bit more, she'd actually be more similar to Snooki. Snooki can like stand on her own, right? She can stand on her own. She is like her own character. Like Deena sort of just like blends. Like she can't stand on her own. She doesn't have as much structure because she doesn't have that like masculine energy like Snooki does. Now, if you're a strong feminine, weak masculine, you want to be very careful who you end up with as a partner. You could end up with somebody like a Vinny, right? Somebody else who's like very sweet and whatever. Now, like the problem with a couple like that is there's going to be a lack of direction. They're going to be a little bit passive, but they'll probably get along and they'll be very go with the flow and all of that. And I think that's actually like how I would describe her and her husband's relationship. But it's really easy for women like this to also fall for the toxic masculine crew, right? So they could fall for either like a Ronnie or like a pre-rehab Mike, where it's like that really strong masculine, weak feminine, or weak masculine, weak feminine. And the reason is because of that nurturing spirit that they have, they're going to want to try to fix them. So you need to be really careful if you're a strong feminine, weak masculine, because you're going to feel all the feelings. You're going to see that somebody is hurt and somebody needs help, and you are going to want to nurture them and you're going to want to fix them. And that could be very draining to get into a relationship with somebody like that who is not healed within themselves. So here's where it gets a little bit interesting. With the guys, it was really easy to put them all in a box and they all pretty much fit in the box. Sammi is a little bit doesn't fit in the box. Sammi, technically, if we tried to put her in the box, she also, just like Deena, is weak, masculine, strong, feminine. We know she's strong feminine because she definitely has emotions. She feels them deeply. She's definitely affected by love and connection. Unlike a JWoww who's weak feminine, like she's kind of like whatever, like I don't need that kind of stuff. So we know she has feminine energy there. And we can see that she has a weak masculine, but her and Deena present very differently. All emotions, really there's two emotions. There's love and then there's fear. All emotions are like a subset of that, right? So the difference is that Deena experiences her feminine energy through the lens of like love, but Sammi experiences her through fear. It's almost like wounded feminine energy, if you will. Celebrities that I would say are like that would be Khloe Kardashian is a really good example. Kourtney Kardashian when she was dating Scott Disick, and I could maybe even like a Britney Spears as well. I think those are good examples of celebrities that are like that kind of flavor of weak masculine, strong feminine, but wounded feminine. Deena just comes off as maybe like needing a little bit more maturity. Sammi comes off as needing more confidence. So with Sammi's style of feminine energy, like it's there, it's present, but it doesn't express well because it comes from fear and not love. So you could tell she has a deep fear of abandonment. That's why she stays with Ronnie way longer than she possibly should. She also, seeks external validation. She looks for approval from others. Again, that's why she stayed with Ronnie way longer than she should. And when it comes to dealing with emotions, she doesn't deal with them, or she didn't, I should say. She does now. Actually, she's a really great person to watch the progression. Once she started dating somebody that was more balanced, she became more balanced. And the way that she handles herself now is so much different than the way she handled herself back in the day. But if you notice, before, instead of like handling confrontation, she would almost like be passive aggressive. She might be like a little manipulative. She like play mind games. She wasn't direct about it. Now she's very direct, but before she balanced herself out, she was not very direct at all when it came to dealing with confrontations, where somebody like Deena would just like get emotional, and someone like JWoww would just be like, I'm kicking your ass. So you can kind of see again how all these energy types present differently. So if you're someone who's currently a Sammi, at the end we'll give you some tips as to like how to heal your feminine as well as step into your masculine. But you need to be very, very careful about who you're in a relationship with, because you, I think even more so than some of the other types, will be impacted very positively or it could be very negatively by who you're in a relationship with. So she was in a relationship obviously with Ronnie, who was weak masculine, weak feminine, and you could see how that impacted her whole entire world, self-esteem, everything, versus now her husband, who she's with, is much more balanced, masculine and feminine energy, and it kind of grounds her and gives her that stability. You could see she just carries herself so much differently. So you have to be very, very careful about who you're choosing as a partner, especially if you kind of fall into this type right now. All right, so let's get into Angelina, who's obviously going to be weak masculine, weak feminine, but she's a little interesting to me, and I'll tell you why. But before we get into that, let's get into kind of other celebrity or reality show people that are also weak masculine, weak feminine. So this is sort of like the Ronnie counterpart, if you will. So Farrah Abrams from Teen Mom, really good example of weak masculine, weak feminine. Jen Harley, who was Ronnie's baby mama in Jersey Shore. Brandi Glanville, really good example of weak masculine, weak feminine, as well as like Lindsay Lohan when she was younger, weak masculine, weak feminine. So the interesting thing is they go through cycles of being the victim and the villain. They really struggle with like self-awareness, and they actually like don't see it. They struggle with self-awareness and they struggle with accountability. And even to this day, if you watch episodes of Jersey Shore with Angelina, like she'll create this like chaos, but then be like, what did I do? And then she becomes the victim, but she actually doesn't see it. And it drives the roommates crazy, but you can see she like actually doesn't understand like how she does what she does. Basically what happens with these people is they lack the emotional intelligence, which is the feminine, to really like read the room in the proper way. They sort of read it through this like lens of like insecurity. Like they can read it, right? But they read it through almost this lens of insecurity, which is like the weak feminine side. And then they also lack the ability to take accountability, which is the masculine side. So they really struggle with self-awareness. They blame others for everything. They're aggressive like a JWoww would be, but when JWoww's aggressive, it's in a more like there's like a purpose to it, right? It's for a reason, versus somebody like an Angelina is aggressive, but just like in an erratic way, in a chaotic way. And the main thing with them is like they just don't take accountability for their actions. Now, when they stop blaming others and they start take responsibility for themselves and they start taking responsibility for their energy, that's how they really start to shift their power. But it's really hard. So here's why Angelina is a little bit interesting to me. I happen to know 2 women in my personal life that are weak masculine and weak feminine. The weird thing with both of them is despite being weak masculine, weak feminine, they're both very intuitive. And then I was thinking about Angelina, like her grandmother was a psychic. She has these glimpses where you could tell that she's intuitive. So the struggle with these, and maybe it's a coincidence. I don't know if all weak masculine, weak feminine females like have this, but the 2 that I know did, as well as Angelina, it seems like they feel very deeply. They feel very correctly. They're very in touch with their intuition, but they don't know how to channel it the right way. So they have really strong instincts, but just really poor execution. So for example, you feel somebody just like pulling away, like they have the instincts, they know, okay, I can feel this person pulling away. They're not wrong about that, but then they don't know what to do about it. So instead of just being like, okay, well, why did this happen? They just like lash out. So they have like this emotional sensitivity, but there's nothing like grounding them to it. So they're deeply in tune with their emotions, but because they have difficulty with the masculine energy, there's no control, there's no structure. So they feel everything, but they don't know how to like process it in a healthy way. So they end up like lashing out, and then they become the victim, even though they just created that chaos themselves. So the problem with somebody like Angelina is you have this weak masculine, so you don't have control or you don't have the structure. So like these people like feel everything, but because they don't have the control and the structure, they lash out instead of processing it in a healthy way. And then because they also have the weak feminine, they lack trust in themselves, right? So they have intuition, but they don't know how to use it. So they are intuitive in a sense where like they sense something is off, but then instead of like just sitting back and trusting their intuition and listening to their intuition, they're going to overreact, they're going to project, there's going to be paranoia, there's going to be like a whole chaotic scene because they feel something is off, but then they don't know what to do with it. For someone like an Angelina who is weak masculine, weak feminine, and especially someone who has like that intuitive side in them, they sense everything, but they don't know how to channel it in a way that's like appropriate. The number one thing is emotional regulation. So you have to start being comfortable with learning how to sit with your feelings instead of reacting. So if you watch even Angelina, anytime that there's a situation going on, she's like on it. She's aggressive. She's like, everyone's like, whoa, 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 where did that come from? She's not comfortable, nor does she know to like sit with her feelings. Like, and then to develop your masculine, what you want to do is you want to start asking yourself in situations, okay, what in the situation can I take responsibility for? And if the answer is nothing, like that's part of the problem is you're not allowing yourself to see the whole situation from other people's point of view in order to see how your actions might have impacted that situation. Doing that will start to increase your masculine energy. It'll help you start to create healthy boundaries, and it'll start to change the way people react to you. You also want to increase your feminine energy, and you do that by stop seeking out like the drama and start like really understanding yourself. Again, a lot of this comes from trauma, probably during childhood. But if you recognize these as like trauma responses and then you do the work and you heal yourself, you'll be able to increase your masculine energy, increase your feminine energy, be a lot more balanced. And then I really do believe that a lot of these people have very strong intuitive powers that were probably developed to protect themselves. But if they can now channel that in a positive way, I think it's super, super powerful for somebody who is like an Angelina. Okay, so now let's get into Snooki, who is, believe it or not, the example of strong masculine, strong feminine at current day. Maybe when she was younger, she was like a little wild child, but now definitely the best example of strong masculine, strong feminine. Other examples of reality show stars or celebrities that are very good examples of strong masculine, strong feminine. Lisa Vanderpump is a really great one from Vanderpump Rules. Lauren Conrad, current day Kristen Cavallari, I feel like is a very good balance. Bethany Frankel and Stassi Schroeder were strong masculine, weak feminine, but present day, I would say they're very balanced. And I think Rihanna is another really good example of a celebrity who is strong feminine, strong masculine. So here are the characteristics. So Snooki, her strong feminine, it makes her magnetic, it makes her playful like Deena, emotionally expressive like Deena, values relationships, she's soft, she's nurturing, she has all that going on. She's a really good mom. But to balance it out with her strong feminine, she's also very confident and independent, like a JWoww, but like softer, more strong, like the Polly version, if that makes sense. So she's more feminine than JWoww, but she has the strength to stand up for herself still. She's not a pushover, more similar to like a Deena would be against a JWoww. So Snooki is more feminine than JWoww, but she has the strength to stand up for herself. Versus Deena is also more feminine than JWoww, but she would get eaten alive by her. Versus Snooki, because she has strong masculine, can stand up for herself. She's more self-assured than Sammi because her feminine is stronger and it's not wounded, so she'll stand up for herself. She would never stay in relationships where she wasn't valued or wasn't being treated properly. And she's also way more emotionally stable than Angelina, obviously, who like thrives in chaos. So now you're like, okay, cool. Michelle, you're brilliant. You put this in Jersey Shore terms. I totally understand masculine and feminine energy now. I want to be the Snooki, or for lack of a better, I want to be my strong feminine. I want to be strong masculine. Like, how do I balance myself out? You want to practice being able to receive. The ability to receive is one of the hallmarks of being in your feminine energy. So you're really good at helping other people and you're really good at providing support to other people, but you probably don't take it in return. Or when someone offers it, you either say no or you're like, they're not going to do it as well as me. You want to like just practice receiving. So someone offers you help, allow them to help you. They might not do it the same way you do it. They might not do it as well as you. That might be true, but it's okay. You want to practice being able to receive. And when you let somebody receive, when you let somebody give something to you and you receive it, like they get something out of that. Like, have you ever given a really good Christmas present to somebody? Like you get something out of that. So when you don't receive, you rob people of that ability to give that to you too. So some of my clients who are stuck in their masculine are like, but like it feels like transactional. They're like, well, I'm taking this from them, like I'm receiving this thing, but then what do I give them in return? Your acceptance of whatever they're giving you gives them joy. Just like when you give a really good Christmas present, you feel joy from giving it. Like that's what you're robbing people of when you don't have the ability to receive. So when someone offers you help, allow them to help you. If there's like a problem, instead of like automatically going into like fix it mode and problem solve mode, like take a minute and sit with the emotion of it first and learn to feel the emotion rather than just like running into action and running into your masculine. Like actually feel the weight of whatever the situation is before you go into fix it mode. You also want to take time just to be. And if you're truly in your masculine, you're going to roll your eyes at me when I say this, but this is what that means, that this applies to you. Just be, not do. Meaning like Have some time not with your to-do list. Have some time when you're not being productive. Have some time where you're just with yourself. That could mean you just go for the walk just for the hell of it. It could mean you take a bath. It could mean you dancing around your house. It could mean you're just take time to be with yourself and doing something that's not productive. It's not to produce anything, which is very masculine. It's just to be, which is very feminine. Again, if you're rolling your eyes, that means this applies to you. And lastly, try to maybe practice knowing what you want still and expressing what you want, but not controlling how it gets done. Not controlling, not micromanaging, not trying to make it sure every little, like just be like, this is what I want, and know that, express that, but then don't micromanage and control the outcome. Let other people do it for you. And that's another really good opportunity to receive. All of which, if you are truly stuck in your masculine, it should make you feel very uncomfortable. That is a good thing. That means you are on the right path, and starting to do this stuff will help you get more in touch with your feminine side. Now, if you're the opposite of that, if you're someone who is very strong in their feminine but weak in their masculine, more like a Deena, also like an Angelina a little bit, and a Sammi, where you struggle with like decisiveness, you struggle with like structure, you struggle with follow through, you like overthink everything to death. So you're never really like taking clear action. You're just like over analyzing and never actually like doing something, right? So what you want to do is you want to start, this is a really great thing to do. Pick one small thing, commit to it, and then stick with it. That's how you start to get a little bit more in your masculine. So it could be something silly like, let's say you're somebody who snoozes your alarm 5 times. I'm only going to let myself snooze my alarm once. That's like a really like easy, benign one. You could say, you know, I'm going to go to the gym once this week. I'm going to go to the gym twice this week, but schedule something and like make yourself stick to it. Another one is start getting comfortable with setting small boundaries, because small boundaries will stop you from people pleasing. People who tend to be stuck in their feminine are usually very in tune with everyone else's emotions, which can be a superpower if used properly, but can be a huge detriment if not used properly and leads to people pleasing. People struggle with, I did a whole episode on people pleasing. I'll maybe link it in the show notes or you can scroll and find it. But people who struggle with people pleasing are afraid of people being mad at them. When you start putting up these boundaries, it allows you to be a little bit more in your masculine. And what you will find is people will start respecting you more. No one's going to get mad at you. People will start respecting you more. And if you think of somebody in your life that has boundaries, you probably never think, oh my God, she's a bitch, or oh my God, like I'm mad that she didn't do that. You probably respect her more because she has boundaries. So getting comfortable with placing little boundaries around things and telling people no sometimes, or at the very minimum, like taking a pause. So if somebody's like, hey, can you do this like on this day? Instead of automatically being like, yeah, sure, whatever. Just be like, you know what? I have to check my calendar. And then coming back and saying, you know what, I'm so sorry, I wish I could, but I can't. But then like sticking to it. People will respect you more. You'll respect yourself more. That will help you develop your masculine energy. Taking action instead of waiting for a sign. Sometimes we're so stuck in our feelings when we're stuck in our feminine energy. We're like, oh, but this, oh, but that. Like just take action regardless of what's going on. And that creates positive masculine energy and momentum to keep pushing you through. And then try to use structure, not just feelings. You want to be careful with this because sometimes too much structure to somebody stuck in their feminine can feel like too confined. But people that are too stuck in their feminine tend to not have any structure, not get anything done. So you have all these like amazing ideas and things, but you're not actually like pushing the ball forward. So create some structure, create some boundaries even within your own life so that you can get some things done. So now you have this like kind of like cool creative flow to you, but you're also able to like execute consistently. Okay, so now you know the kind of person you want to attract. You know the type you are. You know where your energy strengths and maybe imbalances are. You also know some steps as to how to fix them. But here's the question that one of my clients asks me all the time. She says, do I have to be like fully healed in order to attract the right partner into my life? Like, can I just attract the poly now? Or do I have to like be a fully healed human before this person can enter my life? And the answer is, it depends. The answer is probably not no, but it depends. I think it's important for everyone to take accountability and responsibility and do some of the work themselves. Because if you're somebody that's so reliant on someone else's energy, even if that person's energy in a relationship is a positive like force on you and it makes you into a better person and it balances you out more, if you've never done the work yourself, the problem can be is if that person leaves for whatever reason or that person breaks up with you for whatever reason, it can lose the stability because you never created it within yourself. You were a little bit too reliant on them to create it within you. So I do think it's important to do some work yourself, but do you have to do it all yourself? No. But partners can positively or negatively impact your own energetic vibe for sure. A great example of that is Sammi, right? So if we look at Sammi, when she was with Ronnie, she was like a hot mess. She was weak masculine, weak feminine. Now with her current partner, who I think really helped balance her out, she's definitely presents more strong feminine, more strong masculine. Now, if I don't think this would ever happen, but God forbid he went away, like, would she be able to maintain that within herself right now? I don't know. So that's why I don't think you need to be fully healed. And I do think it's amazing when you have a partner that helps heal and balance your energy out more. But you want to make sure that you've done some work within. So if for whatever reason that person goes away, it doesn't like create instability within yourself. So a couple of good examples of that is I think like Snooki, JWoww, and Deena all did work on themselves. And because they did work on themselves, they were able to attract a higher caliber partner into their life. Like imagine, again, just as people pretend they don't know each other, imagine like there would be no world where somebody like a Polly would go for an Angelina. It would just never happen because they're too energetically different. You know what I mean? But if Angelina were to work on herself, like that maybe could happen. But that's why I think you will attract a higher caliber person if you do the work on yourself independently. Now, when you have a good partner in your life, they can definitely impact and help you along that journey as well. And JWoww is a really great example of that. She was originally with Roger, who was her ex-husband, and they were both strong masculine, weak feminine. They clashed really, really hard in their relationship. And then she did some work on herself, and now she's with 23, whose name is Zach. I looked it up. His name is Zach, who he really like took her that extra mile. And you could tell that his strong masculine, strong feminine energy really made her feel safe, and she softened a lot. And I think she's the strongest she's ever been now. So she's somebody who did some work on herself, and then her partner definitely helped out a lot. And that's actually similar to my experience. I would say in my 20s, I was very strong feminine, very weak masculine, people pleaser, a pushover. I'm a Cancer, so like I didn't stand a chance, guys. So then in my 30s, and especially when I had my business, my early 30s, I should say, I was sort of like overcompensated for that a little bit. I think I was too in my masculine, not enough in my feminine. I did some work on myself, and my partner now is Nick. He's very strong masculine, very strong feminine, and he's helped balance me out a great deal. And when you have a partner that's energetically balanced, it's amazing for what it could do to your energy. But you don't want to just rely on that. You want to be doing some of that work yourself too. So I think it's really important, whatever partnership you're in, that they're a positive aspect on you and that you evolve together. I'd say the one caveat is if you're the kind of person that attracts toxic people into your life, have to do the work on yourself first, like no question, because you're attracting that type of person for a reason. But if you don't attract toxic people, you just don't maybe attract the kind of person that you want in your life right now, then I'd say start doing some of the work on yourself, and you can find a partner that can help balance you out. But the most important thing is in any relationship, of course, you're going to evolve, and you want to make sure that you're evolving and growing together, not evolving and growing apart. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Follow me on Instagram. I'm dying to know who you resonated with the most, if this makes sense to you. Like I said, I'm trying to put this modern day twist on masculine and feminine energy. It is one of the most underrated tools and underrated things when it comes to relationships in general, with yourself as well as with others. And I think if we understand it through this like modern day lens, we can just become a lot more powerful people. So make sure you follow me on Instagram at Mish of Nutrish Mish. I will link it in the show notes, and let me know what you thought of this week's episode. I'll see you guys next week.